everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's Talking Reds in association with Tokyo Time. I am in association with Mr. Rob Gutmann. We're not having a joint name. We just decided this.
Bob and Mo. Mo and Bob.
No joint names. Sorry.
Bo Mo. No.
We can be that duo that don't need the name.
No, we're bigger than that.
We are iconic enough, I think. Yeah. Speaking of iconic things, there's been another classic of the Liverpool FC genre this week, in as much as it's been an international break and all of our players have got injured. Or at least that's what it feels like. The actual total is 4. Although once you look at it, by the time we get to Saturday's game against Huddersfield, that total might actually be down to 1.
It's the good 4 though. Well,
yeah.
It feels like an epic one though, this one. I mean, I remember the days where you'd lose Fernando Torres and maybe Gerrard would have a niggle. That felt like a kick in the pants back in Rafa times. I know this has been a confusing one because we're in the realms of conspiracy theories here, aren't we? And these are pretty valid conspiracy theories.
They are. I mean, it's weird because I'm sure you can look at the stats and say how many teams have got players injured at international breaks and compare us to all the other big teams, and it won't be that big. But if you're asking me, I genuinely don't remember a season where we haven't had at least one key player lost to an international break. And at the moment where we've got 3 of them to jump over before we even get to the Christmas period, it's just like we're spending our whole time crossing everything we can. And as much as we were lauding earlier in the season about how great it is having all these international captains, the problem is that means they're probably going to play more. And then they're more likely to get into these kind of situations.
There is, in 2 of the cases, it feels like there's collusion between international and club manager going on. Certainly, in fact, Koeman's all but said this, hasn't he? He said Virgil's been having these pain-killing injections, as I think we speculated on with his rib injury. Yeah. And I think he just needs recovery time that the season isn't affording him, so he doesn't really want to be playing more than the game. I suspect we leave him out of Red Star next week. He should be fine for Huddersfield by all accounts. I think he gets left out of Red Star, so he'll have these series of 7-day breaks by which to reacclimatise. Mo was the other interesting one. Now that, people were going, he's gone off in the 89th minute. Does this look a lot wrong with him? And there's some of the press big boys, Chris Baskin, David Maddock, have gone, he'll be fine for the weekend.
Yeah.
I'd be very disappointed if he's not now.
Well, I mean, that is the flip side, isn't it? Because as much as I was literally just saying about the captains mean that they're going to play more, does it mean that they're more likely to have power to be able to say, well, I want to sit this one out? I mean, in Van Dijk's case, he made a pretty good case in the game he did play against Germany, scoring a goal and generally playing fantastically well, beating one of their big rivals. So you can say to his manager, look, I've done what you asked me to do, maybe now I can sit out, and that's helped. I mean, we like it when they play 1 game rather than 2, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is a quid pro quo, because I think the international managers are well aware that if they take the piss and they just play these lads into the ground, playing twice every single international, when there's a niggle coming into the next international break, the club manager is going to say, you dare go, because you can forget about your place when you come back if you take this risk now. It's not on. So I think they say to the international, do you really need him for both these games? Because if you don't, it's good for both of us if he's not overplayed. One, when you want him in March, end of the season, he's going to be in better nick. So you can see how it's a sensible policy between both sets.
Yeah. Now, of the 4, I'm not sure we actually fully mentioned the 4 who got injured. It's Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, Naby Keita and Virgil van Dijk, although I do believe Van Dijk wasn't a new injury, it was just he's been managing his old one.
It's the rib one, yeah.
Yeah, of the 4 of them, the one who looks the most damaged is Naby. Now, it's a real shame because obviously there were lots of people who were saying that this could be the period where, with a few more winnable games, I mean, obviously we'd like to win them all, but he could start to show his form because there has been a few murmurs. He hasn't started as well as people would have hoped. So this is kind of a setback at the wrong time for him, really.
Yeah, I think he's also been in and out of a couple of niggly injuries as well. People are a bit unfair. He comes back in gets off the bench against City, plays about half an hour, doesn't he? But that's on the basis of being touch and go from a Napoli injury in the week. So but regardless of whether being harsh on him or not, it was a strange one. He played on a pub car park of a pitch. And the footage showed him being given a piggyback off the pitch because they didn't have a stretcher for him. not sure if that's mildly reassuring that he was piggybacked rather than stretched.
I mean, his teammates cared about him enough to not wait. That's good.
It was before half-time. You'd hope that it was uber precautionary. They didn't even worry about assessing him. He was straight back on the plane to Liverpool. One of the Ghanaian journalists, Sega, I think, as he's known on Twitter, was quick to say he'd put a microphone under Naby's nose, and Naby said, "I'm okay. It's not too bad."
I mean,
we'll see.
Yeah.
And to Sega with a pinch of salt.
He's going to say that, really, though, isn't he? If you put a microphone under him at that stage. One thing that does give us a bit of hope, though, is that Superman himself, Mr. James Milner, seems to have recovered from his little hamstring niggle in lightning quick time. So that, coupled with the fact that Fabinho got another 45 minutes last night playing for Brazil against Argentina, so he's certainly working his way into match fitness. So he's going to be a more viable option in there. So do you think for the immediate future we'll be able to ride Naby's injury?
Yes, it's an interesting one, because if Salah and Van Dijk aren't genuinely injured, and we've got to talk about Milner coming back this week, Lallana coming back this week, so it's two new ones in, and maybe Naby half out. It's although it would be nice to, I'm a fan of Naby, and I want to, because I watched him a lot of Leipzig, and I want to see him do well. I want to watch him as much as possible. It's not the worst time for him to be saying I'm not available for a couple of weeks. To be honest with you, we can cope. It's not. He wasn't even first pick at the moment.
No.
So yeah, it's not the end of the world. It probably brings forward the likelihood of, as you say, of a Fabinho start as well, which who knows? This stage last season, we keep saying this. Oxlade-Chamberlain, no one saw a big impact in the season from him. Fabinho could yet turn out to be one of the players of our season.
In fact, Twitter told me yesterday was the anniversary of his first goal for Liverpool. So it was at this point that he first scored, and even then he wasn't still.
It was like against Maribor, was it? Or yeah. Oh no, against West Ham or Maribor. One of those two.
Maribor was first. West Ham, I think, was his first league goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it shows that that's where we're at in terms of a comparison point. So there's still plenty of time for them all to get some minutes and all to feature. I think that's fair to say. Overall, though, how do you feel like we've coped with this whole kind of? Because it's been quite scary, like you say. It's been at least 3 of the 4 players we really wouldn't want to get injured got injured, but there doesn't seem to have been that kind of mass panic/outrage that we've seen in previous years. Do you think that we as a fan base are a little bit more better prepared now, or? I just think
it's let's take Van Dijk and Salah. Very quickly, the noise on the wires that these weren't real injuries. No one was convinced. And actually, if anything, you have the strange sort of conclusion that this is better that this has happened, because what it means is those 2 players only played only played a game each for their country. So in the cycle of midweek weekend, which we've seen for a few weeks and we're going to see again, they've both actually had quietly 2 lots of 7-day breaks. And if they're not injured, that's good. They've been, so let's say Salah is fully fitted. It was total blag. It means in the last fortnight he's only played this 1 game against Egypt, not a particularly taxing one against Swaziland. You can then say there's more of a case to give him 3 games in a week next week, if need be. I don't think need will be, but we've got that potential. Okay. So that has been the plus of this, and I think that sort of offset any slight doubt that we might not see them for a game or 2.
That's fair. That's a fair point. I still prefer the Henderson method of only playing 1 game, which is get yourself suspended for the second game.
That works safely at home on cushions.
Although he was actually out in Spain. He's part of the England management leadership group.
Yeah.
So he was out there celebrating with the lads. And,
the biggest victory since when? I mean, wow. So 66.
I'd say since 2001.
Did you watch it in? Well, I'm being sarcastic, but did you see the commentary on it?
Yeah.
Well, the over the top. I mean, it was a really good performance, and the game took on a status just through in the course of the match that it didn't have at kickoff. I felt.
No.
I thought by the fact that players were disputing decisions, getting so passionate and irate. It became a bigger tournament in the course of 90 minutes, but it doesn't change the fact that for Martin Tyler to go, this is bigger than the World Cup, was bullshit.
No. What I will say about that, and a point I did tweet to Alan Smith, who was defending him, is that essentially what they didn't do in the World Cup was beat a good team.
Oh,
and what they have done here is beat a good team. Both elements are going to be important for the belief of this team going forward. If you ask me what was the better performance, I still think that this Tuesday against Spain was miles better than anything they did in the World Cup.
The first 45.
Well, I didn't even say as far as the first 60, because although they were under pressure after Spain scored, they were still a threat going the other way. Even when Spain had lots of possession, whenever they did break out and get the ball, they were still a threat. And that's the difference. That's what's going to save them in future years.
The only counter argument I'd give on that one is I just don't think you can say it when the status of the competition isn't there. But I tell you why, because although the motivation seemed to be there by the end, you do wonder from the get-go, were Spain at it as much as they might be? You know, we could point to our 5-0 demolition.
Regardless of whether they were at it at the beginning, the fact of the matter is that England didn't score till 25 minutes in.
True.
And they did a Liverpool, bang, 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 3 goals.
They're lovely goals.
They were fantastic goals. And when you have to kind of respect that. And as much as you say, yes, the Nations League, not everyone's going to be taken seriously, some people aren't. England haven't won in Spain since 1987. Spain haven't lost in a competitive match at home in 27 games or something like that. These are long, proud records. And once you're 3-0 down after just half an hour, however much you may or may not think this is a game that doesn't matter, it certainly matters now. And they still didn't do enough to pull it back. So I still think that it's a really good performance from England. I'm not entirely sure why I spent this on talking about it.
I lured him in.
You did. Cheeky. Let's talk about some more Liverpool stuff, shall we?
The Reds.
It was announced yesterday. I say announced. It was released as an internet story that Alberto Moreno is probably going to be leaving at the end of the season when his contract runs out. There is no further plans of any extensions or anything like that, which I guess isn't really news, but it does kind of bring the Moreno era to an end. And
let's have a look at his best bits.
I mean, I've been thinking about this, and it's so weird when you think about it, because the story of Moreno doesn't even begin with his debut. It begins with the summer saga about whether we were going to actually try and sign him or whether we were going to go cheap and try and get Ryan Bertrand instead. Obviously, it probably should have done, looking back on it. Yeah. And then there was the falsest of false dawns with that fantastic away victory at White Hart Lane. There was not just a false dawn for him, but for Mario Balotelli and for Daniel Sturridge, even though we didn't see him again for another 18 months or so. So there was all of that, and there was all of this, the new Risa stuff. And then, well, he really turned into the oldest Risa, which is the one that we really didn't want anymore. How do you look back on it? I mean, we can say we didn't get, £16 million worth of left back. But, I mean, where in the Liverpool pantheon of failed signings to absolute rank flops would you put him?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. He's definitely not one of the greats, is he? He has a good season last season until his injury, I thought. And he showed character to come back. He'd been totally written off. He'd hardly played the previous season. A midfielder had got his position in James Milner. Yeah. He just hadn't shown at all. And he came back, and it looked like Andy Robertson wouldn't have a chance, and did only get in through injury. And you would think that Moreno would have come straight back in, actually, and it's just a testament to Robertson how well he played. He's definitely in the Luis Enrique end of the spectrum. He's not as bad as I think some folk memory will. He will be condemned to be a bit like the unfortunate John Arne Riise, who had a really strong first 2, 3, maybe 4 years of his Liverpool career, but tails off dramatically. He falls off a cliff. Moreno's career is not comparable to Riise's. So no, I think I hope he's remembered fondly, like Enrique should be remembered fondly, as a good character around the place, a good professional. Made himself popular with the lads, and I would say the people who worked with him would say, you know what, we weren't the poor of having Al be part of the squad.
No, I mean it's remarkable because Jose Enrique is a really good comparison because there was a period for both where the vitriol they received was fierce. It was every game. Yeah. It was like, obviously the peak probably being the Europa League final, which seems to have gone down in history as entirely being his fault, even though he did make some mistakes in that game. We won't make you relive the whole thing. But he has been able to reclaim his reputation. And I think a lot of that is down to the fact of when we see the squad at play amongst themselves, being themselves, he's at the centre. He's really key. I think especially for obviously the Spanish speakers, the Portuguese speakers, he's part of that clan. And
You sensed they respected him, you know?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not having it that Coutinho has as his busy mate, a lad who's terrible at football. I just don't think he can bring himself. It's funny how players who become mates tend to be of a similar quality, or at least can see themselves on the same pitch as each other.
And I mean, let's not forget, Moreno earned himself a Spain call-up while playing for Liverpool, so he must have been able to show something. I mean, there's been talk of him going to Barcelona as a backup to Jordi Alba. I mean, we can probably speculate, but I dare say whose idea was that Mr. Phil Coutinho probably had a word.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you know, we had an example in the week of Aspas getting picked for Spain again. Just because they don't absolutely set the world alight, that doesn't mean they're crap. Moreno's was highly rated in Spain, and we have. If you said, did we ever see glimpses of just how good he could be? Yeah, I think we did. And for a few months here and there.
It's a real shame that we went out of the League Cup so early, because it's really going to hamper his minutes. But I dare say he may get a couple of games in the FA Cup this season. So,
but you know what's sorry to cut across, but stranger things are, if Andy Robertson's really unlucky next week, next month, and something akin to what happened to Gomez or Chamberlain happens to him, Albi's in the team for the rest of the season. And we all have to get used to that. He is the next go-to in that position.
Oh yeah, definitely. And although there have been speak that there's one of the youth players whose name
Adam Lewis.
Adam Lewis, thank you.
He's very highly rated. Gerrard rated him.
It's been mooted that he is the reason why there's been no talk of giving Moreno an extension, in as much as he's going to be the one to step up and take his place within the squad.
I think reading between the lines, or all the lines of the reports, I don't think he was. They said new contract negotiation talks have proved fruitless, which suggests to me Liverpool did.
They did actually try.
They did offer him something, but probably he's thinking, I need my next move to be a significant move, and I've got to think about the money. It could be the next big contract of his career. So maybe I think it's clearly the club don't value him as much as he needs to be valued.
Which is, I mean,
fair enough.
It's understandable.
For all parties.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, I'd like to think that there can be, if not a complete fairy tale ending to the Alberto Moreno story, that he can hold his head up a little bit and get a nice applause when he leaves Anfield.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the very
good
least.
Lad.
Yes. Now, as for shows, which is the normal thing that we do at this time of the show, I can tell you that our European show went out yesterday, and if you've not listened to it, you definitely should. We go into the idea of Thierry Henry, Monaco manager. We talk about the fantastic new front line of Dortmund, and talk about why Bayern are terrible, which is always fun if you're a German, or if you just don't like Bayern Munich.
And who does? I've also recorded for our subscription service, Toy Player, £5 a month, a shitload of shows this week, because Neil's been away and given me lots to do.
He's been working you hard.
He's been working me to go. What have I done? We actually did a transfer special show, because I love a transfer. Yeah, and I said I'm not waiting to January. We did a transfer gutter show. We looked at the ongoing Rabiot rumours and a few others. We talked about Mane having not signed his contract. Other show we did is one called The Overview, where we look at the season in chunks, usually between international breaks as it happens. So we've looked at the next 6 games we've got in 24 or 5 days, and seeing how we'll get on relative to our rivals. What else have I done? Oh, too many to remember. Oh yes, my new show, which is in its 3rd edition. It's called The Greatest Show.
Of course.
And it's one where we look at the greatest something in Liverpool history. So this week we did the greatest, your fave 3 Liverpool matches of the last decade.
Oh wow.
Some good choices.
Well, then the stuff that we were talking about last week over 3 years of club would have come in handy then, hey?
Yeah, it would have.
Did any of them feature?
Well, Klopp games.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
from me. Do you know what? There was a good spread from a couple of the panel of about 5 picked. One from the Kenny's first stint. The Man United 3-0 where Dirk Kuyt gets a hat-trick. There was a lot of shouts for the Arsenal 5-1 under Brendan. There were shouts for the 3-0 against City. Last season in the chat. I went for 5-2 against Roma. As I said, the criteria was not necessarily 100% the most important game, although that was, but the game where you came out of the ground thinking we can beat anyone in the world today.
Run through brick walls.
Yeah, we can beat anyone. The other one I picked was
maybe everyone else should just listen to the show to find out the rest of them.
Yes, okay.
We have given them a nice...
Ever the pro.
Well,
I've actually done the show here.
You have literally just done the whole show there. But that's out there on Tour Player, so you can go and listen to it and fill in the blanks what we haven't already mentioned. But we're still 3 days out from another Liverpool game, so we're still excited. hoping
Very
that no one else goes down in that time, and then when the time it gets to go over to Yorkshire, Huddersfield won't know what hit them, and we'll get into a red ramrods, and we'll win by 2, 3, maybe 4 goals.
I'm taking 1-0 off Sadio's arse in the last minute. We just need to win.
I'll take 1-0 off Sadio's thumb at this rate.
Yeah.
Well, thanks as always to my partner here, Rob, in
pleasure.
life, if not in crime, and we'll see you all next week.
Tokyo Time is sponsoring Talking Reds for Wednesdays for the foreseeable future, which were made up about. They're a Liverpool company. They're trying to do things differently. They're trying to do things better, a bit like the Anfield wrap. And so they've set up only recently, but already got a lot of traction for kind of what they want to do. They helped us out in America. They gave us hats to wear over there, and very much needed to wear in that bacon sun next to the pitch, watching the Liverpool boys train. So yeah, since then they've come in. They've asked us about doing something a little bit more formal. So that's what we're going to do. So they're going to be sponsoring Wednesdays on the Talking Reds for the foreseeable future. If you're into your baseball caps, you're into your street style, or you know anyone else who is, or you're looking for presents to buy for people, do check out their website. It's tokyotime.co.uk, or follow them on Instagram. They've got loads of styles, something for everyone, and the fit is really, really good. So yeah, cheers to the boys for supporting us. They're supporting us, so do try and support them, tokyotime.co.uk.